The Death Rangers story is solely in the Power Rangers comics published by Boom Studio. For those who don't know Power Rangers comics, I can tell you that they have very interesting stories with an adult focus. We all know that Power Rangers on TV is aimed at a younger audience, and that is why the stories are simple. In the TV series there are no complex stories, as they should be stories for all ages, but the comics have deeper stories. The story of the Death Ranger is a story that talks about death and acceptance when the people who leave this world will never return. Thousands of years ago there were 5 Omega Rangers, which were red, yellow, blue, black, and gold. This is different from what we know today, since now there are only 4, since the gold color is not there, and the existence of a gold Omega Ranger had never been known until now. We are going to focus on 2 Omega Rangers in this story, the gold and the blue. These 2 Omega Rangers were friends, but they were 2 very different beings from different planets. The Gold Ranger comes from a planet that does not understand death, since for them it does not exist. This does not mean that they are immortal, but rather that when a person dies, they say that their journey in life is over. This is because when a person dies, their soul joins a collective consciousness which they call the legacy. When these souls join this collective consciousness, what happens is that all the people who remain alive can hear all the dead in their minds, and that is why they do not understand death, since they continue to hear the voice of the person who died. Imagine you have a person you love and then they die, but you can still have a conversation in your mind with that person. This is not similar to the imagination, since we ourselves control everything there. This is different, since the deceased person is really going to respond to you. It's basically like you're on the phone with the dead, since you can't see their body, but you can hear their voice and have a conversation. It is also how these beings on this planet live with dead people inside their minds, and that is why they do not understand death or loneliness. The Gold Omega Ranger, called Spark, was suffering since being very far from his planet, he could not hear the voices of this collective conscience. It was the first time he felt loneliness, although he really wasn't alone, since he lived with the other Rangers. For him it was a different loneliness, since he was used to hearing all these people in his head, and now he didn't hear anything. His friend, the Blue Ranger, tried to cheer him up and explain that he really wasn't alone, that there was a lot of life around them, but even so Spark couldn't understand this. At that moment a giant enemy attacked them and killed the Blue Ranger before she could transform. At first Spark did not feel the death of his friend and never cried, since he thought that her soul was going to connect to the collective consciousness, and he was going to be able to continue connected to her. Obviously, this didn't happen, since she was from another planet, and little by little Spark began to get depressed because it was the first time he had that feeling of emotional pain. All Rangers deal with pain in different ways, but Spark wanted to find a solution to that pain. After a few days the Rangers had to stop a monster that was similar to a giant mouth, but it was really a portal that led to the darkest with a lot of knowledge. This monster told Spark that it could help him with his problem, so Spark got closer than anyone ever had. The Rangers were able to defeat the monster and lock it up, but it was too late. With the dark knowledge that Spark had found in that portal, he began to experiment with the energy of the Morphin grid. With this energy he could give life to everything that was already dead, but Spark did not understand the consequences of this. After supposedly mastering this energy, he quickly went to the Blue Ranger's grave to revive her. The other Rangers noticed this and quickly went looking for him, but it was too late. Spark had revived the Blue Ranger. Even though she was alive, the Blue Ranger seemed like a lifeless puppet that Spark was simply controlling with the new power. Spark was happy because her friend was alive, but the other Rangers tried to explain to her that this was wrong since she should be dead. That was her place now and she had to learn to accept it. Spark refused to accept the death of his friend, so the Black Ranger began to treat him like any other threat from space and attacked him. At that moment the Blue Ranger attacked the Black Ranger since Spark was controlling her. After this, Spark woke up all the dead that were buried in that same place and he could control them all. The Omega Rangers had to transform to start fighting with all these living skeletons controlled by Spark, which now becomes the Death Ranger. Even though Spark was able to control the dead, he couldn't fully control the Blue Ranger, who broke free and started attacking Spark. In that moment of weakness, all the other dead broke free as well, started chasing Spark, seized his blaster, and shot him. With this shot, all the connection of the new power vanished and the Blue Ranger was sorry for what had happened since that was not what she wanted. Again, she started to die as she was only alive due to the Death Ranger's power, but at the same time Spark also started to die. When Spark died, his soul was seeking to join the collective consciousness like all the people on his planet, but being away from his planet, his soul couldn't connect to the collective consciousness. Because of this, her soul was attached to the Morpher since it was the only thing that could keep her, and then the Omega Rangers hid this Morpher. After the destruction of the command center, after the Eltarian War, Kimberly, Rocky, Adam, Aisha, Billy, Tommy, Alpha 5 and Zordon are in the headquarters. We can see that the whole command center was smashed to pieces and the Rangers are a bit worried, except Rocky, who already started to pick up and clean up the whole place. If you saw the destruction of the command center in the TV series, then you know that it has a place underground that is more protected. Zordon explains that the place below is called the power chamber and it is the place that allows the Rangers to connect to the Morphin grid. The upstairs part of the command center that we have always known is important as well, as it was for communication, surveillance and protection of the power chamber. Without that top part, then the Rangers are exposed, and anyone can attack them so they can't reconnect to the Morphin grid. Although we all thought, including the Rangers, that there was only one command center in the entire universe, Zordon and Alpha 5 explained that it was a basic Eltarian command center and there are many just like it. Because of this, the Rangers decide to travel into space in search of another command center since without such a place the Earth is in danger. Zordon states that even though Lord Zed helped them in the previous war, he still seeks the destruction of the Power Rangers. Rocky returns home to talk to his mother, and she tells him that she needs him to stay home to take care of his siblings since she must travel, otherwise she will lose her job. Rocky tries to make excuses that he has a school trip since he knows they must travel to space to find the command center. At that moment, Rocky's sister arrives, very surprised, as if something was happening with the moon. When they all look up at the sky, they realize the moon was disappearing. But Rocky says that's a problem for the next day. In Promethea we can see Grace, the first Red Ranger and creator of the Terra Venture ship, repairing the place and receives a call from Dr. Zaskin, who confirms that the moon did not disappear, but was camouflaged. Then inside Promethea we can see Zordon, Billy and Tommy, who went looking for help and tell Grace that they need her protection as the power chamber is at risk. They also asked her for an Elter ship and 10,000 megawatts. Grace agrees to help them since the Green Ranger, who is not Tommy, comes from Promethea and he also needs the Morphin grid to access his powers. On the ship, Tommy and Aisha are getting ready, then Rocky arrives and tells them that he won't be able to go on the trip. Rocky thought he was going to disappoint the others, but they are relieved as they were planning for a ranger to stay and guard the power chamber along with Promethea's workers, so Rocky agrees to be the last line of defense. The ship takes off and quickly, without wasting time, Rocky is attacked by robots that only had his face, a tire and arms with laser weapons. These robots are different in that they can learn from their mistakes and continue to be better warriors. Rocky transforms and begins to destroy as many robots as he can, but they start to become too many for him alone. As Rocky tries to attack, another robot blasts him with a laser beam from behind and knocks him to the ground. One of the robots sends a message with a request asking if he should neutralize or eliminate him, but he is given the order to eliminate Rocky. At that moment, a green lightning bolt explodes all the robots that were around. At that moment, Matthew Cook arrives, the Green Ranger who works with Promethea, who also wants to defend the power chamber. Rocky is very worried and hurt. He tells Matthew that the other Rangers have already left, and he is afraid that the robots will return, but Matthew tells him that he is not alone. One of the robots continues to send images to its owner, which is King Aridin, and he sent the robots to confirm the destruction of the command center. Now the king knows that the command center is destroyed and vulnerable, that Lord Zed has retreated from the site and that most of the Rangers are off-planet. This is the perfect opportunity to conquer Earth and destroy the Power Rangers forever along with their source of connection on Earth. King Aridin is the worst enemy of King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire. King Aridin is briefly mentioned in Power Rangers Zeo, but his major appearance is in the comics. Back on the ship, Alpha 5 gathers all the Rangers, although he feels strange doing so without Zordon. Alpha tells them that he found a planet that was once inhabited by Eltarians, but they left 30 years ago. This gives the Rangers the advantage that they can find a command center without having to battle anyone and fight a battle they can't win. This planet is called Aegis 5, which is covered entirely with water. This means that the command center they are looking for is underwater, which presents a greater challenge for the Rangers. The most difficult part of the situation is that the command center is not at shallow depth, but is far away from the surface, which makes it even more difficult to get there and even more difficult to take the command center. At this point in the story, the Imperial's threat is over, the blue emissary is missing, and Robot 11 is out of commission. Omega Rangers Jason, Zack, Trini and Yale are in Safe Haven, which is a safe place at the point of eternity. Now without the blue emissary, the Rangers must find a way to work alone. Jason searches the computer for signals to find Lord Draken and his ship, but the computer tells him that there is nothing. Still, Jason keeps faith that he will find him. At the lab, Trini is still working tirelessly to try to repair 11 and is on video call with Billy to try to help her by telling her what to do. Even so, Billy's advice is still not working as he is relying on the workings of Alpha 5. They both manage to turn 11 on, but apparently, she has no memories and that doesn't work for them. In a secret room full of weapons are Zack and Archon, a respected elder in Safe Haven who has a direct connection to the Morphin grid. They both realize that someone has stolen a weapon and Archon tells Zack that more things have gone missing recently. Zack acknowledges that it is a place with a lot of inhabitants, but still asks Archon if he has any suspects in mind and Archon says yes. Zack goes in search of that suspect, which is Kever, a Hartunian who was stealing fruit at the time. Zack gives him a chance to return the weapon he stole without having to do it the hard way, but Kever throws the fruit in his face and flees. After a quick chase, Kever hides and Zack thinks he lost him, but surprisingly manages to catch him. Although Kever continues to deny that he is the thief of the gun, Zack continues to insist and tells him that if he doesn't take him to where the gun is, he will lock him up for several centuries. Back at the lab, Trini keeps trying to bring 11's memories back, but nothing has worked. Even 11 can talk and do everything normally, but it's like it's a new system. At that moment, Trini gets a call from Billy, who was running a diagnostic on 11's entire system, but everything was normal. The only thing he could find is that a user was blocking 11's memories. Trini is confused since she didn't do it and knows that Jason or Zack wouldn't know how to do that. Then, the unexpected happens. 11 tells Trini that he is blocking his own memories as she had told him that he has seen many terrible things, worlds destroyed and many people who have lost their lives. Because of this, 11 doesn't want to have to think about all that again and tells Trini that he doesn't need all those memories to be a good Omega Ranger's assistant. This is 11's final decision, and he tells Trini that if he can't respect that, then he should pull the plug. Elsewhere, Jason continues to work with the computer searching for the Wraith 2 ship and Lord Draken, but the computer tells him it has found nothing. At that moment, Yale enters chasing a flying jellyfish and interrupts the search and the computer setup. Yale runs off to the roof of the place and Jason goes after him and notices everything that Yale has destroyed. He then climbs up to the roof very angry and is amazed at all the flying jellyfish he sees in the sky. Continuing with Zack, Kevert and Archon, they go in search of the stolen weapon and Kevert directs them to where he lives now, as he says his parents died in Hartunia and he was forced to travel and was abandoned in Safe Haven. Unfortunately, no one wanted another mouth to feed, and they passed Kevert from family to family until he found that place where he lives now. When they arrive, Kevert tells them that inside is the gun and asks them to find it and leave him alone. When they enter the house, they realize that Kevert had stolen more things than they had thought. We can even see that there is a king's crown, an Eltarian warrior's helmet, and even a Red Ranger's helmet. At that moment, Kevert appears with the weapon and threatens them, as he says he must be prepared when the beings that destroyed their planet arrive. Zack and Archon tell him that he is safe there as the Imperials no longer exist. They start fighting and Kevert starts telling Zack that the Omega Rangers are the only thing holding Safe Haven together. If the Omega Rangers leave, then people are going to start fighting each other and form a war for power. Kevert gives Zack a hard blow and tells him that he has nothing left to do but survive in that place. At that moment, Archon takes a swing at Kevert and takes away his weapon to save Zack. Kevert thought that Archon would take his life, but surprisingly he tells him his story and tells him that when he arrived on that planet, he had nothing because of the Hartunians, and yet he decided to make Safe Haven his home and swore to protect it. Besides that, he tells him that he cannot protect the planet alone and needs help. Then, Archon extends his hand and offers him a home and a purpose to live. After that, the 4 Omega Rangers meet at the computer site and begin to talk about the future of the Omega Rangers and the other planets. Trini tells Jason that he must change since he has spent every day and every hour on the computer looking for Draken, and they must leave the past behind and focus on other things and other worlds that need the Omega Rangers. Surprisingly, Jason agrees with Trini and tells her that Yale helped him realize everything he was missing. Then, the Omega Rangers start sending a message to all the planets in the universe to tell all the inhabitants that they are not alone and that the Omega Rangers are going to protect the weak and warn the villains that they are not going to continue abusing the weak. In one of those worlds, we can see Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space, but in another world, we can see the followers of Vox, a powerful villain who had already had problems with the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying a planet and sacrificing the inhabitants when they received the message and decided to track the signal to know the exact location of the Rangers because they want their revenge. After Zordon was at Promethea asking Grace for help, he now returns to the command center, which we know is destroyed. Promethea employees are cleaning up the place to get everything ready before the Rangers find a new command center. After a bit of a bumpy ride, Zordon arrives at his destination. Matthew the Green Ranger greets him and opens the doors. One of Promethea's employees helps move Zordon's tube out of the truck but drops it in a very silly way. The Green Ranger gets upset with the Promethea employee and Zordon thanks him for all his help. But Matthew is still upset with Zordon since he had previously told him that he was going to take the power coin from him. Zordon and Promethea's relationship has never been very good, and this is why he doesn't have a good relationship with Grace and Matthew. Because of this, Zordon talks to Grace and thanks her for all the help, plus he also apologizes for all the things he has said and done. Grace does not receive the apology very well, even though she has been waiting for many years for Zordon to apologize to her. Now we can see Matthew from a very high place talking on a cell phone with Rocky, and we can see the place surrounded by a force field to protect the power chamber. This force field is created with the help of the Megazords because even though they are damaged, they still work to channel the energy. In their conversation, Matthew realizes that Rocky is a bit busy, and it is because he is taking care of his siblings, and Matthew offers to help him. In Aegis 5, the Rangers are looking for the command center, which is underwater, and somehow they have oxygen thanks to the Morphin grid. The Rangers are divided into two teams. Team 1 are Tommy, Adam and Aisha. They are swimming through several caves to try to get some access to the inside of the command center and find out if there is anything dangerous inside. Team 2 consists of Billy and Kimberly, who are searching for the exact location of the command center from above. Team 1 mysteriously finds a cave full of alien eggs, which they find to be mysterious because, if there are eggs, then there may be life on that supposedly abandoned planet. Now Team 2 was able to find the exact location of the command center, but Team 1 is still suspicious that there is something fishy going on as the mission is going too easy. At that moment, the Rangers are surrounded by an alien species from that planet, who don't look so happy that the Rangers are invading. Back on Earth at Rocky's house, all his siblings are getting ready to leave for another location and are waiting for a special guest. It should be noted that Rocky's family obviously doesn't know that he is a Power Ranger. At that moment, someone knocks on the door, and when they open it, it is the Green Ranger coming to take them all to another place. Back on Aegis 5, the Rangers begin to fight with the inhabitants of that planet, who are very angry because they think that the Rangers are Eltarians coming to invade and enslave them. The Rangers were looking for the command center, which is a surveillance center created by Eltarians, and in addition to this, they also arrived at that planet in an Eltarian ship, and it is because of this that the inhabitants of the planet think that the Rangers are from Eltar. Aisha manages to stop the fight and tells the planet's leader that they are not from Eltar and that they only came to look for the command center. Unfortunately, for the Rangers, that command center is what is protecting the eggs of these inhabitants, so they are never going to let them take the command center. Even so, Aisha convinces them to let them enter the command center to look for information about the location of other command centers for them to travel to those other planets, and the planet's leader only allows Billy and Aisha to enter. On the way inside the command center, the leader tells them that the Eltarians offered them many things in exchange for them to join their troops, supposedly for peacekeeping, but in reality, it was for wars. Because of this, this planet was almost extinct, and this made the Eltarians leave. This is why the inhabitants of this planet hid, so that the Eltarians would continue to think that there is no life there. When they arrived inside the command center, we can see that there is a giant bubble that protects the offspring of these aliens, and the leader of the planet tells the Rangers to look for everything they need because this will be the last time someone will enter that place. While Billy begins to look for coordinates of other command centers, Aisha tells him that she has never seen him worried about losing his powers, but Billy tells her that he has never been worried about that. He is worried about losing his friends and sees the world in a different way because when he sees places like that planet, he can realize that there is something bigger than power weapons and Zords. On Earth now is Matthew, Rocky and his family at the site of the old command center. One of the twins is talking to Zordon and asking him very uncomfortable questions as he asks him about where his arms are. Rocky, very embarrassed, goes to find him quickly and acts as if he has never met Zordon as his family doesn't know he is a ranger. Inside the offices is Rocky's sister and he meets Grace. She starts to tell him that Grace has a lot of money and wants some advice on how she can make it too. At that moment, when Grace goes to tell her, they start to feel a strong wind, and it is that a strange ship was coming to the place. Grace leaves the conversation halfway through and goes out to investigate what was going on. She asks Dr. Zaskin about the ship and who is driving it, but the doctor tells her that he finds no signs of life. This confused Grace a lot, and the most confusing thing is that the doctor also tells her that this is contradictory since from the ship they sent a message saying that the new ruler of planet Earth has arrived, and he expects us to have prepared a proper throne. At that moment, we can see King Aridin and his servants get off the ship, who want to conquer the Earth, taking advantage of the fact that Lord Zed and the Rangers are not there, besides the fact that the Earth is vulnerable without the command center. Back in Safe Haven are the Omega Rangers, but while Zack and Trini are sleeping, Jason and Yale are training hard. Then, when Jason arrives back at the house, Zack and Trini are already awake, but a little cranky as they are still tired. While Jason prepares his breakfast, he tells the Rangers that they should enjoy this paradise because they can do whatever they want, without lies and without hiding their identity, but Trini only thinks that they still have a big responsibility because they must protect the universe. Now, the Rangers go to the Point of Eternity and talk to 11 to know if they received any response from the message they had sent to all the planets. The Rangers receive responses from 2 different planets. On the first one there is no sign of life, and it can only be a ship that was stranded on that planet. The second response comes from planet KO-35 and is an urgent emergency signal as there are attacks with large weapons all over the planet. The Rangers decide to split up in order to travel to the 2 planets, so first, it's Morphin time. On the first planet, which is located in the Mindrose system, we can see Zack and Trini looking for the emergency signal, but it takes them a while to find the ship that is emitting this signal. We can see that the ship they found is destroyed, and the Rangers feel that this could be a trap. Because of this, Trini decides to enter the ship alone, so Zack stays outside watching. Inside the ship, Trini realizes that the signal was disabled and there are only dead bodies. She also tells Eleven that the escape pod is gone, which means someone had to use it and may still be nearby and need help. Zack is outside the ship and finds the engine but realizes that it is unstable and could explode at any moment. Suddenly, a loud noise is heard outside the ship which scares Trini very much. At that moment, a giant winged monster appears, probably the one that destroyed the ship, and wants to attack the Rangers, but they invoke the Omegazord power. Now in the second emergency location, on planet KO-35, Jason and Yale are looking for the problem. Jason thinks that there was a big war going on there, many lives were lost and apparently the Rangers were too late. At that moment, Yale can smell that something bad is happening and Jason feels that they walked right into an ambush. Suddenly, aliens called the Zurichs appear, and they are looking for a ranger, but they recognize that Jason is not the ranger they are looking for. Still, they threaten him and tell him that if Jason goes with them then Yale won't suffer when they eat him. The battle begins and Jason tells Zurichs that he always tells Yale to hold back, but this time he won't tell him anything. In the middle of the battle Jason asks what they did to the planet, and they tell him that they ate everyone and it's the same thing they do to all the planets. While the Rangers are still fighting, we can see someone hiding in the shadows watching everything. Back in Mindro, the Rangers are fighting with their Omegazords against the ferocious giant beast, and no matter how many blows they have given it, the beast is still going forward very angry. Trini decides to tie the beast with chains and throw it towards the ship. Because the ship's engine was unstable, everything explodes, and the Rangers manage to finish off the monster. After that hard battle, 11 tells the Rangers that he found the escape pod of the ship that had just exploded. The Rangers go to the location and manage to find the capsule, but when they open it, they get a big surprise. Inside the capsule is an alien baby. In KO-35, the Rangers are still fighting with the Zurichs, and after so much arguing, in the end only one of the aliens is left. This last alien tries to run, but suddenly he is attacked with a laser beam and Jason gets scared since he was not the one who launched the laser beam. The one who launched the beam was the same one who was watching the battle from the shadows hiding, and tells the Rangers that they must leave before more aliens arrive. Still, Jason demands that he needs to know who it is, so the person takes off his hood and to everyone's surprise it is Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space. At this point in the story, Jason does not know Andrus, and for those who do not know Andrus should know that Andrus comes from the planet KO-35, and that is why he calls the Omega Rangers to this planet to help him save what is left. Back at Safe Haven, the Rangers took the baby to the lab to verify that all was well. The capsule had the baby asleep in a deep sleep, and 11 says it may be many hours or many days before she wakes up. One very important detail that 11 says is that the baby's metabolic system is very fast. Then, Zack and Trini have a call with Jason. They talk about what is going on with the baby and that the computer records have no information on the species of that alien. They also ask Jason if he needs help, but he tells them that Andrus told him that no ship can go in as it may alert enemies. Zack and Trini are worried as they don't know who Andrus is and ask Jason to be careful. Then, as Zack and Trini talk about the baby's future and how they are going to have to take care of him since he has no one, 11 interrupts them and tells them that they need to go to the infirmary fast. Zack and Trini freak out and ask about the baby's health, but Eleven tells them that his health is fine, but there is another situation they need to look at. The supposed baby has woken up and is no longer a baby. Apparently its metabolic system is so fast that the growth of this alien is accelerated. On Earth, everyone is protected in the force field and King Eridan starts his attack to try to destroy the force field, but he doesn't manage to do anything about it. King Eridan talks about King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire, and says that he is going to steal his place in the Dark Speeder group. Inside the force field, Matthew tries to convince the others by saying that he should go out to stop the attack, but Zordon and Grace tell him that if the force field holds out then he should stay inside until the other Rangers arrive. Grace tries to explain to him that if he sends him out to stop the attack, it would be unnecessary since the shield is holding up so well. Because of the whole situation, Rocky decides to take his brothers to the power chamber, so they don't have to see everything that is going on. After so much time attacking the shield, King Eridan decides to use a more powerful weapon to destroy the force field but decides to continue attacking with the other weapons even though they are not working, just to make everything more dramatic. In the power chamber, Rocky is with his brothers and sisters. At that moment Matthew arrives and tries to talk a little with the kids to get them to think about something else. He also asks Rocky to talk and tells him that he is coming out, and even though Rocky offered his help, Matthew refused as he knows that Zordon has a rule that no Ranger can reveal his identity and Rocky's family would know. Before Matthew goes out to fight, Zordon tells him that he was wrong in his choices as Matthew is just like Tommy. Zordon did not choose him to be a Power Ranger, yet both have been able to be good Rangers. In addition to this, Zordon shows his support for him to be a Ranger. The other Rangers are now on the planet Leonis, a planet located in the Lion Galaxy, where they have a hidden command center, and the king of this planet has in his body the device that makes the command center undetectable. The king is going to have a party and the Rangers must enter and be near the king for 4 minutes in order to deactivate the device with another device invented by Billy. At the party, Aisha and Tommy must go in, but Adam and Kimberly must go into a security tower to disable the satellites that prevent the Rangers from transporting the command center to Earth. Billy says that Alpha 5 must go with Aisha and Tommy to the party as he must help them disable the security system in order to get inside, and then he will provide support inside. Tommy disagrees with this idea as Alpha is known throughout the galaxy and that would give them away. Alpha 5 replies that he has a disguise, but Tommy still doesn't want Alpha to go with them. On Earth, King Eridan meets the Green Ranger and thinks he is Tommy when he was still Rita's servant. The king tells the Green Ranger that if he allows him to destroy everything and torture Zordon for many years, then perhaps he will spare his life. The Green Ranger makes it clear to him that he is not Tommy, and he does not accept this request as well, and then the battle begins. We can clearly see that the king is very powerful and starts to beat up Matthew. On planet Leonis, Aisha and Tommy are at the palace where the king is going to have the party and realize that they can't enter through the main entrance, so they decide to enter through the hard way. When they manage to get in, They steal the costumes of other guests, and at that moment the king is talking to his guests. Tommy interrupts him and tries to have a conversation with him, but the king realizes that Tommy doesn't know anything about what he is talking about, so he starts asking him questions, suspecting that Tommy shouldn't be at that party. At that moment, Tommy is saved by Alpha 5, who mysteriously managed to enter the party disguised as a stylist. Back on Earth, the Green Ranger continues to battle, and inside the shield, Rocky, Grace, and Dr. Zaskin try to find a solution to help Matthew. King Aridin and his entire army are robots, so Rocky has the idea that maybe they can shut them down like any other electronic device. Dr. Zaskin has the idea of inventing a device that they can point at King Aridin and shut him down. While the Green Ranger is having a tough battle, Rocky tells him that they need the dragon dagger for a few seconds, and this was unexpected for Matthew since that was his only weapon at the time, but he decides to trust Rocky and looks to dodge all the blows without his weapon. After that, they return the gun to Matthew with the new device attached to the dagger and tell him to aim it at King Aridin. At that moment, Matthew aims it at the king and gives him a big pulse shock to try to shut down the machines, but even though it was a hard hit to the king, it still did nothing to him. After the blow, the king gets up and tells the Green Ranger that they are automaton machines and can't shut them down easily, and then starts attacking him again. Rocky is getting desperate as he wants to help his partner and tells Zordon that he must break his rules about identity. Zordon replies to him that his rules have to change, and the new rule is that no Ranger dies. With this, Zordon gives Rocky permission to go out and fight alongside Matthew, but first he goes to talk to his brothers and sisters to say goodbye and tells them he has to go do something important. The Red Ranger leaves the force field, and a new battle is about to begin. In Safe Haven, Zack is still trying to calm the new alien girl who keeps growing at an impressive speed and has big changes in several hours very quickly. Trini went in search of food and Zack is left alone in the house trying to take care of the girl, but she keeps crying non-stop. Zack keeps trying to give her food, but the little girl throws all the food everywhere and Zack doesn't know what he is doing. At that moment, Trini arrives, and the girl stops crying, and it seems that she feels calmer around her. Trini tells Zack that she is still running tests in the capsule where the girl was to get more information about her, but the process is going to take several days. This scares Zack because with the speed at which the girl is growing in a couple of days, she could be an old woman. At that moment, Zack confesses to Trini that he named the girl who is now going to be called Journey, but she gets very angry since they had made the decision not to get attached to the girl since they are not her real parents, and they are only taking care of her. Trini and Zack begin to argue, but the girl starts to talk and tries to say her name and causes a lot of affection in Trini. On planet KO-35 are Jason, Andrus, and Yale searching for the central base of the Zurichs, the aliens who destroyed this planet. Jason feels a little angry that he has given Andrus his full trust, but he still hasn't told Jason where they are going and what they are looking for. After almost 2 days of searching, the Rangers find the Zurichs base, which is full of soldiers and prisoners from the planet. Andrus tells Jason what the plan is, and that is that they are going to infiltrate the place and neutralize the vigilantes silently and then seek to free the prisoners. Jason asks Andrus what happened on the planet, and he replies that Dark Spectre recruited the Zurichs to wipe out the planet since Zordon was helping the inhabitants develop Ranger technology. Andrus says that he and Zane were part of the Rangers and were to share Ranger technology with other nearby planets to create an alliance. Apparently, Dark Spectre had the same idea and sent the Zurichs to destroy everything. After that, they sent a swarm of insects that turned all the people into monsters, and the survivors had to fight against their own people. Andrus tried to protect the people who survived, but several days ago he went to look for food, and when he came back, the people were gone. The Zurichs are going to continue to take everything that is left of the planet, and when they have everything, then they will execute all the survivors and then leave. Andrus very angrily tells Jason that it doesn't matter if there are 1 million Zurich soldiers, tonight they are going to win the battle. Back in Safe Haven, Journey is still growing up and is now getting into lots of mischief like any 5-year-old girl. Then, Zack takes her for a walk and tries to teach her new words, and Journey continues to learn, but just then, an animal from the planet appears and tries to attack them. Zack transforms and grabs the girl and starts to run, but turns around and manages to kick the animal, which leaves in pain, and Journey looks like she enjoyed the whole adventure, but Zack asks her not to say anything to Trini. It is already night in KO 35, and it is time for Jason, Andrus, and Yale to enter the base to save the prisoners. The Zurich's vigilantes realize that there is something strange at the water exit, and at that moment, Andrus shoots one of the vigilantes with his blaster. The other one tries to escape, but Andrus also shoots him after the vigilante had already given the alert. Now, we can see the Ranger suit that Andrus has, which is a different suit than the one we have already seen for years. This new suit is completely black and has a different symbol on the chest. Andrus wants them to split up, but Jason insists that they should stay together since this is just a mission to rescue the survivors. Andrus continues to insist that he wants to attack the Zurichs and show them the same mercy they have shown. Just then, the Rangers are attacked by a group of Zurich soldiers, and Jason tells Yale that he knows what he must do. The battle begins, and Andrus begins to attack the Zurichs without mercy and with a great thirst for revenge. Jason realizes this and tries to stop him, telling him that he must remember that they are only there to rescue the survivors. At that moment, Yale arrives with all the rescued prisoners who attacked the Zurichs. Andrus is confused and doesn't know how this happened, and Jason tells him that this happened remembering that it was a rescue mission. Back in Safe Haven, Zack is teaching Journey how to play a sport they have on that planet. A family passes by the same place who also have a little girl just like them, and the family stops to say hello to the Rangers and talk a little with Journey as well. When the family leaves, Journey realizes that they are all the same, but she doesn't look like Zack and Trini. Because of this, she asks them why she is different. Trini decides to tell her the truth and tells her that they are not her real parents and that her real family may be dead, or maybe there is also a possibility that they are still alive. In addition to this, she also promises him that they will take care of her and keep searching until they find her real family. At that moment, Zack receives a call from Kimberly, who is on another planet and apparently gives the Rangers some bad news. On KO-35, the survivors board a ship to escape the planet and seek refuge, at which point Andrus says goodbye, but Jason asks him to go with him to safe haven. Andrus then tells Jason that during the invasion the Zurich stole the Astro megaship, which contained most of the Ranger technology, including several prototype morphers. If Dark Spectre finds this technology, then the Morphin grid will be at risk. Andrus says goodbye to Tikwa and has a conversation with her as he apparently has a secret plan that the Rangers cannot know about. Part of that secret mission is to save Zane and make Dark Spectre pay for everything he did to this planet. Now, Jason talks Eleven into opening the portal that takes them back to Safe Haven, and on the other side are Zack and Trini waiting for Jason to give him the bad news Kimberly told them. Trini is crying and Zack doesn't know how to tell Jason what was going on. Finally they tell him that his mom had passed away. Tommy, Aisha, and Alpha 5 are on planet Leonis at the party of the king trying to complete the mission to get the location of the command center they have hidden there. Alpha saves Tommy as he starts talking to the king and he believes everything that Alpha is saying, who is disguised as a stylist. At that moment, Billy sends a message to Aisha and tells her that he already has all the data he needs and can get Tommy and Alpha out of the place. Although Aisha was enjoying Alpha's performance, she interrupts the conversation and manages to get them out of the place. On Earth, Rocky joins Matthew to fight King Aridin in a tough battle. The Rangers are trying to buy time to wait for the other Rangers who are on planet Leonis. Matthew is fighting the king and Rocky must take out all the other robots. Unfortunately, the king is very powerful and is beating the crap out of Matthew. The king has the Green Ranger lying on the ground about to finish him off and Rocky saves him by firing his blaster. The two continue to fight and try to stick to the plan so they can give the other Rangers more time. In Leonis, Kimberly and Adam are in the planet's security tower to try to disable the satellites in order to teleport the command center. Adam helps Kimberly go down to a place full of laser beams that can trigger the alarm, but she deactivates them by launching an arrow with great precision. They manage to enter the place and neutralize the guards. Then they encounter a janitor who continues to do his job and doesn't bother the Rangers. After neutralizing several guards, they reach the security center and start looking for the button to turn off the satellites. Meanwhile, Kimberly is surprised that Adam has learned how to be a Power Ranger very quickly and feels that she is not that important since they can easily replace her. Adam tells her that she shouldn't feel that way, she should look at it from another point of view. If other people can replace her, then she doesn't have the weight of the security of the universe on her shoulders. Any day she can retire and move on with her life as nothing lasts forever, and someday, she won't be a Power Ranger anymore. The war on Earth continues, and the king takes advantage of Rocky's back and launches an attack, but Matthew throws himself at him and is shot. The attack was so powerful that they both destroy a rock, and a cave is formed where they begin to talk about what to do next. The king is very powerful, and they are both badly hurt. Matthew can no longer get up and Rocky begins to feel that he doesn't have the power to defeat the king. Matthew tells Rocky that he is very strong despite being under so much pressure from the invasion. He still hasn't stopped taking care of his family. With those words, Rocky regains his strength and stands up ready to continue fighting, but before he leaves, Matthew gives him the power of the dragon. Rocky goes out to fight and quickly breaks the king's weapon with his sword and the dragon dagger at the same time. On the other planet, the Rangers find the command center and prepare to make the biggest teleportation in the history of the universe. Rocky is still fighting, and even though the king no longer has any weapons, he is still very powerful and hard to defeat. The other Rangers are still preparing, and Tommy is a little scared as it is a very complicated mission, but Billy tells him that they have everything under control. The king has Rocky on the floor almost defeated and already wants to finish him off, but Rocky keeps resisting while the other Rangers are about to do the teleportation. At that moment, the king grabs Rocky by the helmet, but Rocky doesn't give up and tells him that he's not going to let it go, so the king tells him that he's going to bury him there and throws him hard against the ground. At that moment, the Rangers start the teleportation from planet Leonis, and the plan that Billy and Grace have is that the rubble of the old command center is moved 1 kilometer to the west and the new command center is teleported to the same place where the old one was. Despite the heavy impact, Rocky gets up and the king grabs his broken gun to throw at Rocky. The king tells Rocky that he is finished and defeated, but Rocky replies that the plan the Rangers have is going to work. The king mockingly asks him about the plan, and Rocky replies that on Earth we call it stalling. At that precise moment, all the Rangers arrive: Tommy, Kimberly, Billy, Adam and Aisha, along with the command center in one of the most epic moments I have ever seen. At that moment, Rocky tells the king that the Earth will always be protected and that he should leave right now and to tell all of his friends. At that moment, the king quickly leaves in his ship into space, while Rocky enters the power chamber to see his family. All his brothers and sisters hugged him, very relieved that it's all over now. His sister tells him that she is proud of him in a roundabout way by making him understand that she knows his secret. Now they are all together in the new command center, and Tommy tells Grace and Matthew that even though they don't have the best relationship, he is still very grateful for all the help they have given them and for protecting their home. Matthew tells Tommy that he only served as support since Rocky did the most important work. Aisha asks if they should start worrying about Lord Zed's location since they don't know anything about him. Zordon tells her that they should worry about that another time, and for now they should just enjoy the great mission they have all done. At that moment, Rocky interrupts the conversation to ask about Alpha's location since he didn't come with the Rangers, and Grace asks about the ship he loaned them. Billy tells them that Alpha is on his way back from planet Leonis with the ship and should arrive soon. The Rangers, instead of teleporting the command center along with the ship, apparently decided to have Alpha fly the ship to Earth. At that point, Kimberly gets a call and says they need to call the Omega Rangers. Adam thinks they want to have a party to celebrate having a new command center, but the call was for something else. Those who saw the previous episode know that the Omega Rangers got a call from Kimberly, and it was to tell Jason that his mom had passed away. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Omega Rangers are all on Earth at Jason's mother's funeral. After the ceremony at the cemetery, everyone gathers at Jason's house to support the family. At that moment, Ernie, who tends the juice bar, approaches Jason to give him words of support and tells him that one day he saw his mother hiding watching Jason teach some kids. Ernie offers his full support, then leaves in tears, and Jason continues to greet everyone else. Outside the house are the other Rangers talking about the cause of death of Jason's mother, and at the end Kimberly said that Jason's father revealed to her that it was due to a heart arrhythmia. In Safe Haven, there is Andrus and Eleven with Azurix, which they have him as a prisoner to try to get information about Dark Spectre's plans, but despite all their efforts, the Azurix does not tell them anything. The prisoner takes the opportunity to try to humiliate Andrus by telling him that the people of his planet were cowards because they had invaded another planet which was less developed and the people were able to defend themselves, but the people of KO-35 hid like cowards. Andrus and Eleven leave the prisoner's room, and Eleven apologizes to Andrus for not being able to help him and get information out of the prisoner, but Andrus tells him that they can try again tomorrow. Then they say goodbye and Eleven thinks Andrus is going to sleep, but in reality, he came back with the prisoner and pulls him out of his energy shield to have another kind of dialogue without witnesses. On Earth, Jason is trying to talk to his father, but his father constantly ignores him, and Jason realizes this. In the end, they have a small argument, and the father tells him that he is going to sell the house and move out, that he doesn't need Jason and that everyone should live their lives as they want. At the juice bar, Zach gets a call from Journey, who is now the size of a 10-year-old girl despite being only a week old. Journey is performing a magic act and the Rangers are enjoying the show. Then, Zach says goodbye to Journey and tells her it's time for bed. At that point, he begins to have a conversation with Aisha, who asks him if they are ready to leave Journey when they find their planet. At the GYM are Trini, Jason and Tommy working out and talking about King Aridin, who almost defeated the Rangers. Tommy and Trini are very concerned about Jason's emotional health and tell him he can take a few days off to rest, but Jason tells them he is in good health and wants to keep working. The next day in Safe Haven, Eleven and Andrus return to talk to the prisoner, who by some coincidence is very beaten and now wants to cooperate by providing all the information he can. The prisoner makes several confessions and talks about the possible location of the Astro megaship. After that, Eleven locks him in a kind of space chest similar to the same one Zordon used to lock Rita in. He then takes the chest to a giant vault where there are many chests and tells him that he will be safe there until he is judged in an SPD court. Despite everything, the chest seems to have an open lid and a light comes out of it. Then, the prisoner's voice is heard calling Andrus and asking him to get him out of there. Andrus appears and tells him that he must activate the device he gave him in order to teleport inside. Now they are both inside the vault and the prisoner starts telling Andrus that he fulfilled his part of the deal and now he must fulfill his part and get him out of there to be free. Suddenly, Andrus begins to hear a voice telling him that revenge is a great ally, but the Zurix doesn't hear the voice and thinks Andrus has gone mad. At that moment, the Zurix gets very angry that Andrus is ignoring him and tries to attack him, but Andrus takes him out with his blaster. Andrus keeps hearing the voice and starts to follow it to find out where it is coming from. That voice starts to tell him that it was waiting for him and that it had been there in the dark for thousands of years. At the command center, Jason and Zordon are having a conversation about everything that needs to be improved so that the same thing that happened on planet KO-35 doesn't happen again. Then, this conversation gets a little awkward as Zordon tries to give Jason words of support and tells him he can take a few days off. Jason gets angry and tells him that everyone is treating him like he is bad, but he really has nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. He also tells Zordon that he is a little jealous of Andrus because even though he lost everything, at least he has someone to blame and take it out on. He lost his mother and can't do anything about it. Back in Safe Haven, we can see that Andrus is still chasing the voice and entering deep into the darkness of the vault. The voice gets louder and louder until he finally manages to find the chest where the voice is coming from. This chest is different from the others. It is isolated and chained, which gives us a clear reference that what is inside is very dangerous. The voice says that he was able to defeat death, and this is why Andrus wants to free him to help him defeat Dark Spectre. The voice tells him that he will do that and much more. It also tells him that Andrus has seen the face of death and with loss comes understanding and power. It also tells him something very important, and that is that long ago he was one of those chosen to protect the universe forever and he has some unfinished business. Andrus then breaks the chains and opens the chest to see that what is inside is a gauntlet just like the Omega Rangers. Several days after Jason's mother's funeral, Kimberly goes to visit him because he is very depressed and won't accept help from anyone. She brings him food and Jason receives it with no desire to receive visitors. When they are in the kitchen, she realizes that several people have already brought him food as well and Jason has a lot of clutter in his house. She offers to help him, but Jason insists that he is fine and doesn't need anyone's help. When she leaves Jason's house, Kimberly runs into Trini outside and they begin to have a chat. Kimberly thought Trini had come to help Jason, but she had actually just left since she also realized that Jason wants to be alone. The two begin to talk about how after they get to Earth, they must answer all their cell phone messages since they don't have that signal in space to receive messages and calls from Earth. Trini also tells Kimberly that she needs to go shopping since they don't have clothes for humans in space. After trying on a lot of clothes, Trini decides to wear something more daring and Kimberly is a little confused since she had not seen Trini with that style, but she tells her that in space she learned not to follow cultural fashions. Then, they both sit down to eat and start to have a little awkward conversation as Trini starts to tell her about some secrets. Kimberly was surprised as she couldn't believe that there were other Power Rangers now that she knew about Andrus. Trini tells her that there are actually more things that they don't know, and because of this Kimberly is very curious to know more about it. Trini begins to tell her about how everyone knows that Lord Draken had escaped from his cell and then returned to help with the Imperials, but that wasn't the first time he had actually returned. The first time he came back was when he killed Tommy, and Rangers of all times and space came to defeat Draken. At that time, all the memories the Rangers had of that event were erased, but an emissary restored the Omega Rangers' memories, and that is why Trini knows all of this. Kimberly gets a little confused and obsessed with all these secrets Trini told her and goes to the command center where Billy is repairing the Zords to ask him for a favor. She tells Billy that he was able to repair and upgrade the Green Ranger Power Coin, so maybe he can manage to upgrade the powers of the Power Rangers. Billy suspects that this request is because of something else, so he asks Kimberly, and she replies that she talked to Trini about the future of the Power Rangers and found out that they are all replaceable. Billy starts to get interested in the situation, and Kimberly tells him that the Rangers always put their lives at risk and need to increase their power to be prepared. Billy agrees to start working on something that will help them improve and is going to share the idea when he has something worthwhile. Kimberly goes to the GYM to train, but she is still very thoughtful about the whole thing. At that moment, Tommy arrives and realizes that something is wrong with Kimberly. Even though he tries to talk about it, she doesn't feel like talking about all the bad things she is thinking. Even so, Tommy tells her that she doesn't have to go through all of this alone. At that moment, Kimberly receives an alert from Billy and Tommy decides to join her. The Rangers arrive at the command center to talk to Billy, and he tells them that he searched Zordon and Alpha's files so he wouldn't invent something that had already been made up, and found something that can help them improve their powers. Billy's plan is to send the Rangers to a simulated pocket dimension where he can create fake villains so the Rangers can practice and use the new power. Kimberly and Tommy make their transformation and travel to the pocket universe Billy has prepared. Quickly, in this universe, you can find old villains, the Z-Putty Patrollers, which were the first soldiers that Rita used to confront the Power Rangers. Then, Billy introduces the most recent villains, the machines that Rocky and Matthew had to fight. The Rangers begin the battle and Billy tells them they can activate the new power to begin the test. The metal armor is the new power that the Rangers now have, which gives them more strength and power to continue battling. The Rangers begin to test their new power and realize that they can destroy enemies even with their bare hands. At that moment, Billy realizes that the new armor consumes a lot of power from the Morphin grid, but the problem with this new power is that the energy is very unstable. Because of this, Billy asks the Rangers to deactivate the new power, but Kimberly starts to really like the power and doesn't want to deactivate it. Tommy talks to Kimberly and tells her that they should deactivate the power and do what Billy says, but she still thinks she can control all that power. Billy clarifies to her that it's not about self-control, but that the new armor's power is volatile and that throws the Morphin grid out of control. The pocket dimension depends on the Morphin grid and it is very risky. At that moment, the communication with Billy is cut off and the Rangers try to connect again but are unsuccessful. They start to worry, so they decide they must get out of there but realize that nothing works. At that moment, a black hole opens in the sky which begins to destroy everything in the city, including buildings, roads, and even the enemies that were there for the Rangers to practice. The ground begins to break, and lava appears. Now it forms a kind of tornado that falls to earth and forms a giant sphere that begins to swallow everything around it. At that moment, a voice is heard coming out of the sphere, a voice of someone that many of us know, but that the Rangers of that time still do not know. From the sphere begin to come out several of the worst villains that have existed in the entire history of Power Rangers. Now we get to see Trakeena, the villain from Lost Galaxy. Then there's Sledge, a villain we started seeing in Dino Charge E but was in several more seasons. We can also see the Black Lion Warrior from Jungle Fury. Then there is Void Queen from Dino Fury, and finally we can see one of the worst villains ever, Rancic from Time Force. Trini and Zack are shopping at Safe Haven for food with Journey, who has grown up quickly and is now a teenager. At this point in her adolescence, she is in a rebellious and misbehaving phase. Because of this, she has many arguments with Zack and says she hates them both. At that moment, Archon and Kever arrive, who invite them to a dinner to celebrate life since they knew that Trini and Zack were at a funeral. At that moment, Kever meets Journey and the two show a mutual interest in each other. When Archon and Kever left, Zack wasn't too sure he wanted to go to the dinner, but Trini was the one who accepted the invitation since she realized Journey was interested in Kever. At that moment, we can see Vox's followers, who were hiding in the shadows keeping an eye on the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying another planet, but they heard Omega's message, and with that they knew their exact location. The Omega Rangers have Vox imprisoned, and that is why his followers were looking for the Omega Rangers, in order to free their boss. Now, Jason, Andrus and Eleven are planning how they are going to look for the Astro Megaship, since Eleven was able to find it with the help of the Zurichs they were holding prisoner and cooperated voluntarily after a short visit from Andrus. Part of the mission is to evade an entire army, and Andrus intends to do the mission alone, but Jason won't allow it and tells him that Rangers always help each other, because if something goes wrong, then he will have support. At the house, Zack and Trini start an argument with Journey, since now they are going to have to go out in search of the Astro Megaship, and they are going to leave Journey alone, who is very angry because she can never go with them. He obviously explains to her that they can't take her since it's a war zone, plus he tells her to go to the dinner by herself, but not to hang out with Kever since he's a bad influence. This makes Journey very angry, and again she and Zack start arguing. Journey starts to cry and says that one day she will wake up and she will be older than them and will not have been able to do anything with her life. She also wished they had never found her. On the Astro Megaship is the entire Zurich's army, and along with them is the Prime Minister and the Viceroy, who have the mission to dismantle the entire ship, but there is one room that they have not been able to open because of the high level of security. This room contains the biggest secrets of the ship, and the Viceroy says that Dark Spectre sent Darkonda to look for exactly what is inside that room. Just then one of the Zurichs arrives to tell the Viceroy that the Power Rangers have arrived. Outside the ship were Trini and Zack in their Omegazords, and Andrus was in his Galaxy Glider trying to invade the ship. At that point, the mission was to disable the shield generator so the Rangers could enter the ship, and Zack was able to complete the mission and remove the shields. Thanks to this, Jason and Yale were able to invade the ship and started fighting with all the Zuriks that were at the entrance. At Safe Haven, Journey and Kever went for a walk for a while, and Journey tells him about the argument he had with Zack and what he said about Kever. Despite this, Kever gives Journey good advice and tells her that for a while he was alone and did everything he wanted, but it's actually good to have several adults who care about you, ask if you ate and who you're going out with. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Archon and Eleven are preparing food and having a conversation about the different flavors of energy to charge Eleven. At that moment, Eleven receives a shock from Vox's followers, who take advantage of the opportunity that the Rangers are out of the planet. Inside the Astro Megaship are Yale, Andrus and Jason fighting with many Zuriks, and Jason tells Andrus that even though he likes the black suit, he should do Morphin since that would be the help they need. Andrus tells him that even though he can morph, he won't do it since he promised himself that when he fixes all that trouble that happened on his planet, then he will morph again. Jason respects his decision, but suddenly he realizes that Andrus is gone. Now Jason and Yale have to face an army by themselves. Andrus had gone to look for Zane, who was dead, and his body was in a box similar to the escape chamber where the Rangers found Journey. Andrus opens the box and puts the gauntlet he found in the chest in Safe Haven's vault into his hand, and Zane is revived. In Safe Haven, Vox's followers want to enter that same vault to look for their boss there, but despite threatening Archon by telling him they are going to eat rotisserie chicken, he still won't give them access to the vault since the only one who can open it at that moment is Eleven, but they disabled him upon arrival. Kever and Journey are in hiding figuring out how they are going to help Archon, but Journey is too scared and Kever tells him they must go out and fight. On the other side, Trini and Zack are surrounded by many members of the Zuriks army. Jason and Yale can no longer continue fighting with so many soldiers, and when they are about to change the plans, someone hits very hard to all the Zuriks. Jason and Yale are very confused and all the Zuriks fall defeated. At that moment, Andrus' voice is heard apologizing to Jason for abandoning them, but Andrus doesn't come alone, he comes with his friend Zane. In this image we can see that Zane has teeth like a skull, which means that there is something inside him that is different. This is the awakening of the Death Ranger, the beginning of one of the most powerful Rangers in the history of the franchise. In the pocket dimension, which is damaged, and the Rangers no longer have communication with Billy, are Tommy and Kimberly, who are about to have a battle with Rancic and several other villains. The villains are a bit confused because they can't recognize the Rangers since they are not from their time, but they still want to take them down. Tommy and Kimberly are aware of this, so they begin a dialogue that they are going to have to fight. The battle begins and the Rangers quickly realize that these villains are very powerful. Tommy tries to attack, but they hit him so hard that he goes out flying. Kimberly shoots an arrow, but it is easily deflected. Then several villains attack Tommy at the same time. Kimberly tries to help him, but they also attack her. Rancic grabs Tommy by the neck and says this brings back memories. At that moment, Rancic hits Tommy so hard that he destroys all his armor and he is left lying on the ground while Kimberly is badly injured and can't do anything. Kimberly tries to save Tommy, so she holds him and starts to fly away, while the villains get a little desperate as they don't want to let her escape. But one of them says to let them go so they can hunt them down and it will be more fun. Kimberly is desperate and starts checking Tommy's pulse to see if he is still alive. Tommy is still alive, but he is badly wounded and can no longer fight. Just then the unexpected happens. The pink emissary appears and tells Kimberly that Tommy is only alive because of the awesome armor the Rangers have developed. Kimberly is confused as she thought there were only 3 emissaries. But the emissary tells her that their job is to exist beyond the known to monitor the Morphin grid for threats. Kimberly blames herself for everything that is happening as she thinks she pushed Billy and now the new armor has created instability in the grid. The emissary clarifies to her that even though the armor was unstable, what really caused those villains to arrive was her fear. Kimberly tells her that she is afraid because Trini told her that Tommy died in the events of the shattered grid and that the Rangers must be replaced by other Rangers. The emissary tells her that she has a little knowledge, but in reality, she has a lot of misconceptions. Yet she blames herself because the emissaries thought that erasing the memories of the shattered grid events would help protect them from further disruption, but in reality the opposite happened. At that moment, the pink emissary puts her finger on Kimberly's forehead and gives her back all the memories of those events, including the entire battle and the Rangers she helped. With these memories back in her mind, Kimberly realizes that they are not going to replace them, but that it is natural causes of their own that bring about the retirement of each Ranger. She is very remorseful, and the pink emissary tells her that now that she is closer to the pink specter, she can use that to defeat the villains of that dimension. After this, Kimberly seeks out the villains and they are shocked and think she just wants a quick end. But what they don't know is that now she has a greater power, the power of knowledge. Suddenly, Kimberly raises her arms and begins to raise the pink power. With this power, all the pink Rangers of the story appear, guided by Kimberly saying that it's Morphin time. All the Rangers do Morphin, and Kimberly tells them that they are going to show the villains what awaits them in the future. All the pink Rangers start attacking all the villains, forming a big team, which is winning the battle. In this battle we can see all the pink Rangers of the story, including Dino Fury's Pink Ranger. Now several Rangers use their blasters to attack Rancic heavily, and Kimberly continues to lead the team and gives the order to surround the villains to finish them off. Kimberly gives the order, and all the Rangers start attacking at the same time, causing a big explosion and the destruction of all the villains. After this attack, all the villains begin to disappear, but the pink Rangers are also disappearing, and Kimberly says goodbye to them. At that moment, Billy's voice starts to be heard, who is still trying to communicate with the Rangers. Now Kimberly and Tommy return to the command center and Billy starts to apologize for the whole situation, but Kimberly tells him that it's all her fault. Billy checks on Tommy and says that everything is fine, but now he's going to leave the armor development to Zordon and Alpha. Billy asks Kimberly about what happened in the other dimension, and she tells him she got some perspective. Now Kimberly and Tommy sit outside the command center at sunset and start talking about the situation that was going on with Kimberly. She apologizes to Tommy as she feels guilty because he almost got killed in that other dimension, but Tommy tells her that a lot of things happened that she couldn't have prevented it. Kimberly tells him that she was able to meet other Rangers and they were all cool. She was able to see a future where they were no longer Power Rangers and had stopped being Power Rangers by choice. She also tells him that even though she doesn't want to retire now, still, she should start considering other things in life, maybe travel the world, and tells Tommy that maybe he can go with her. Tommy tells her that he is afraid to give up the power of the Rangers as he doesn't want to become Draken, but she tells him that he is never going to become Draken. Kimberly also tells him that today he learned that they should worry less about the future and worry more about the present. Kimberly and Tommy enter the command center and are met with the surprise that the other Rangers were all gathered together. Rocky tells Kimberly that because of the situation she was going through and that they know now that they are not the only Rangers, that they should have a name for their group, and maybe this will give her some encouragement. Kimberly thanks them all but tells them that she already overcame her crisis and now she just wants to help as many people as she can while it is her turn to be a Ranger. Now the Rangers are off to the juice bar, and we get to see all the names the Rangers wrote down. On the Astro Megaship, Jason, Yale and Andrus are still on the ship with supposedly Zane, although in reality this is no longer the real Zane, but another being that took over his body. Jason is very confused as he does not know who this person is and feels that something is not right. Zane calls Jason by name and tells him that he will understand everything in due time, but that he has seen his life and his death. He has also seen his mother, and if Jason follows him then he will show him much more. Andrus and Zane begin to power up the ship, while Jason tries to communicate with the other Omega Rangers, who were desperate to hear from Jason. Zack and Trini realize that the Astro Megaship is preparing its weapons to fire, and Jason inside realizes that Andrus and Zane were ready to fire. Zane presses the button and fires all the weapons to explode the Zurich ship and destroys everything there. Jason can't believe it, and Zane confesses to him that they are not going to Safe Haven, they are going to KO 35. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are in the weapons room looking for some things to fight Vox's followers. Kever has doubts and doesn't know if Journey knows how to fight, but she tells him that Trini and Zack taught her some moves. Kever then tries to attack her to know her reflexes, but Journey defends herself very well and throws him to the ground. Vox's followers try to break the vault door to get their boss out of there. While Archon is on the floor, he tells the leader of the followers that they traveled just to get Vox's psycho out. The leader beats him and tells him who Vox really is, that he was touched by the energy of the Morphin grid in the events of the Shattered Grid, and from that moment he started to save his world, which was led by corrupt politicians. At that moment, Journey and Kever enter to start attacking Vox's followers and help their friend Archon. At first, the leader of the followers thought they were the Rangers, but Archon feels sorry for the leader since he knows that Journey and Kever are more rebellious. In space, Trini and Zack are following the Astro megaship and trying to communicate with Jason, but they are unable to do so. They don't know where they are going either and are very desperate and confused. Inside the ship, Jason is very angry because they should not have blown up that ship. He begins to have an argument with Zane, and in the end, Jason demands him to answer who he really is. This being replies that he is just now Zane from KO 35, but before that he was Spark the Gold Omega Ranger. Jason had never heard of a Gold Omega Ranger, and Andrus tries to tell him that when he became a Ranger, he started hearing a lot of stories about the ancient Omega Rangers and the Gold Omega Ranger who conquered death. Jason is very angry as Andrus manipulated them to get to the vault and release this supposed Ranger when he was on Earth at his mother's funeral. Andrus tells him it was the only way to get Zane and his people back. Then Zane starts telling him the whole plan. They have to resurrect the people of KO 35 and then take down the Zurichs and Dark Spectre. They will then travel all over the galaxy to resurrect everyone who was wronged and finally bring justice. Jason tries to convince Andrus that all of that is wrong and tells him that he understands what it's like to lose the people you love, that all of that is not justice, that all of that is revenge. Even so, Andrus still thinks that he deserves to have his revenge, but Jason keeps trying to convince him that, despite feeling a lot of pain for the loss, a lot of innocent lives are really going to be lost in the process. He also tries to explain to him that he would give anything to get his mother back, but if that thing possessing Zane's body were to bring her back, then she wouldn't be the same. Finally, he tells her that he is using it to At that moment, the unexpected happens. Jason is pierced with a sword in the chest by the being that possesses Zane's body. Now, Andrus is very scared and can't believe what is happening, but Zane tells him that Jason won't be dead for long. Then, Zane's voice changes and it is the voice of this shadowy being saying that Andrus wanted his friend back and he requires a more powerful body. Then, Zane takes off the gauntlet and puts it on Jason, while telling Andrus that he should not regret the death as they are fighting for the soul of the galaxy itself and need soldiers. After this they also take Yale's life to make him just another soldier of this shadowy being. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are still fighting with Vox's followers and are winning the battle, but then the leader realizes that there is no one else with them to fight, so he starts trying to hit Kever and breaks his weapon. When he is about to hit Kever, Journey saves him by giving the leader of the followers a terrible kick. The leader is very confident and thinks Journey is no match for him, but she dodges all the blows, raises her weapon with a lot of power and makes a tremendous energy blast. Archon and Kever are surprised because now we can see Journey bigger and they don't know how old she is now. In space, Trini and Zack arrive at KO 35. Their Omegazords don't have much energy anymore, but they must land on the planet since they know that the Astro megaship is there and everyone knows that they already arrived too. On the planet we can see Andrus and Zane talking about the planet and everything that is happening. Zane thinks everything is beautiful, but Andrus tells him that all of this is not right since they were supposed to drive away the horrors, not bring new horrors to the planet. Zane tells him that everything is not exactly as they imagined, but thanks to him the whole planet is about to live again. At that moment, Trini and Zack arrive, They start asking about Jason and Yale. They also ask Andrus about Zane since they had never seen him before. Now something impressive happens. All the dead people on the planet start to resurrect and look like alien zombies. Trini and Zack decide to go back to the Omegazords, but the Death Ranger in Jason's body tells him that he won't allow it. At that moment, Jason and Yale start attacking Trini and Zack, and they still can't understand what is happening. The battle begins and the Death Ranger says that Jason and Yale are at his service and soon they will be too. Then, Zane hits Zack in the back and Yale takes advantage of the moment to attack him. Jason and Trini are also still fighting, and the Death Ranger speaks through Jason's body telling Trini that he got tired of seeing them disgrace the Omega Ranger's name and they have allowed too many things. Meanwhile, Andrus continues to see everything that is happening and feels very sorry. Then Eleven's voice is heard trying to communicate with Andrus. Then Eleven opens the portal and Andrus tells him that when he enters, he should close it quickly. Andrus enters through the portal and Zane tells Jason that they knew Andrus wouldn't have the strength to do all this. Then in Safe Haven we can see Andrus enter through the portal and quickly yell at Eleven to close the portal. Everyone in Safe Haven is confused and asking about the Omega Rangers. Andrus is very remorseful and doesn't know if the Omega Rangers are still alive. Then, on Earth in the new command center we can see Tommy and Billy talking about what happened with Kimberly and the Pink Emissary. They are discussing the possibility that there are more emissaries, one for each ranger, and Billy says that maybe there is a white emissary or maybe all the emissaries are Tommy since the white light is the combination of all the colors. At that moment, Andrus, Eleven, Kever and Journey arrive to ask for help from the Rangers, telling them that the universe is in danger. At the command center on Earth, Andrus is explaining to Zordon who the Death Ranger is and tells him that he had made a deal with him. Andrus would release him in exchange for helping him defeat Dark Spectre, but the Death Ranger did extreme things and now possesses Zane's body and the Omega Rangers. In addition to that, he also awakened all the dead on planet KO-35 and is gathering an army. Andrus also explains that the Death Ranger is using the Morphin grid to control people, so if they find a way to disrupt that connection then they could defeat him. Billy says that he might have a way to do it, but he needs help from Grace Sterling, and Matthew starts calling her on the phone. Adam is worried about the army of the dead, but Zordon tells him that the army is controlled in the same way, so if they can sever the connection, then there will be no more army. Tommy is very upset and starts yelling, saying that they shouldn't trust Andrus since he is to blame for the whole mess. Tommy asks Andrus for a reason to trust him, and Andrus tells him that if at some point he must give his life to save the Omega Rangers, then he would do it without hesitation, since he at least owes them that much. The other Rangers try to reassure Tommy and they say that for them that is enough, so Tommy tells them that it's Morphin time. After the transformation, 11 opens a portal and sends the Rangers to planet KO-35, but a bit far from the city. Then, the Rangers walk to the city and Andrus asks Billy about the new weapon and he tells him that with one shot from that weapon he can disconnect anyone from the Morphin grid. Tommy asks Andrus if he has any other secrets and Andrus tells him that it is likely that no one will get off that planet alive. At that moment, the Death Ranger's voice is heard saying that he agrees with that. Then, the possessed Omega Rangers appear on top of the ship and the Death Ranger in Jason's body starts talking to the Rangers, trying to turn them against Andrus, saying that this was all planned by him. Kimberly takes off her helmet and starts giving Jason some words of support, but the Death Ranger says that she is a good friend, but Jason is happy where he is. He also says that he took Jason's pain away and gave him peace in exchange for his body, and he can do the same to all the Rangers if they choose to surrender, but Tommy scoffs, saying that they won't surrender. The battle begins, and this seems to be a war between all the Rangers. Aisha, Rocky, and Kimberly are battling against Trini and Yale, but they are trying to just dodge the blows, so they don't hurt the Omega Rangers since they know they are their friends controlled by the Death Ranger. Despite this, Kimberly gets hit by Trini and Aisha is being tempted to hit Trini. Adam and Matthew are fighting Zack, while Billy adjusts his gun to try to free Zack. Then Billy shoots, and even though he hits Zack, it still didn't do anything to him. Elsewhere, Tommy and Andrus are surrounded by all the zombies. Tommy wants to help Andrus, but Andrus tells him that he must go fight the Death Ranger. He is going to take care of the zombies since it is his responsibility for causing all this. At that moment, Zane appears and starts to fight Andrus as he thinks he is a traitor. Now Tommy starts fighting with the Death Ranger, who starts telling him that Jason despises him since the white lighter should have been his. He also tells him that he is an imposter and doesn't deserve to lead the team since that was Jason's place. Tommy tells him that if he wants to twist Jason's words to hurt him, then he should try a little harder. At that moment, the Ultra Omega Zord appears and Tommy tells him that it doesn't scare him, but then the Death Ranger brings the Gold Omega Zord and joins it with the Ultra Omega Zord to make it more powerful so he can control it by himself without needing the Omega Rangers. Then, Tommy tells the Rangers that he has good news and bad news, but the bad news they can already see. The good news is that the Death Ranger already showed what he had and called the Zords early, so the plan worked. Tommy then asks the Rangers to call in the Thunderzords and tells Matthew to back up the Rangers with the Dragonzord. He also tells Andrus to bring him the new weapon, but Billy isn't sure if it will work. Tommy continues to fight with the Death Ranger and asks all the Rangers to trust him. Aisha is worried about what is going to happen to the Omega Rangers by leaving them alone in the battle, but Tommy tells her not to worry as help has just arrived. Just then, Archon, Kevin and Journey arrive to help the Rangers with the zombies and keep the Omega Rangers busy. We can see that Archon has awesome armor and Journey is bigger and looks like a warrior. Trini and Journey start fighting. Meanwhile, Journey starts telling her everything that has happened since they left. He also tells her that Trini is faster and is supposed to have stopped it by now, but he knows Trini is in there fighting too and slows that thing down, so he doesn't hurt her. On the other side of the battle, the Rangers appear with the Thunder Megazord and the Dragonzord to attack the Ultra Gold Omegazord, but it defends itself and launches an attack on the Thunder Megazord. The Rangers ask Matthew for help, and he starts attacking the Omegazord. Despite all the attacks, the Omegazord defends itself very well and hits the Dragonzord very hard. On the floor, the battle between Tommy and the Death Ranger continues, but Tommy tells him that he has an offer for him. Tommy tells him that if he releases the Omega Rangers, then he can take his body. The Death Ranger pauses for a moment as the offer is tempting, but Andrus appears and shoots him. Unfortunately, he misses the shot, and the Death Ranger realizes it was all a trap, so he cuts Billy's gun in half. He then tells Tommy that he is going to be his new body so he can control the other Rangers. In that moment of carelessness, Andrus climbs on top of him, and this causes him to laugh, and he tells Andrus that he won't be able to stop him. Andrus tells him that he may not be able to stop him, but the Morphin grid can. Andrus morphs and creates an explosion inside the grid that separates Jason's body and the Death Ranger, but the Death Ranger keeps talking and tells Andrus that he can't hide. Andrus tries to wake Jason up and yells at him that he must wake up. The Death Ranger keeps trying to control Jason's mind, who is trapped in a dream with the other Rangers, and suddenly Andros appears. This surprises Jason as he is confused, but Andros tells him that he must trust him, and they both begin to fall. Now, they appear in another memory of Jason, which is the arrival of all the Rangers before the Battle of the Shattered Grid, and Andros tells him that they must leave quickly. Unfortunately, it's too late. The Death Ranger appears, grabs Jason by the foot, and they start falling. Down come all the memories of Jason's life. Andros tries to help Jason and tells him he must remember who he really is. Now Jason begins to live a memory with his mother, and in that memory, he also asks about his father. At that point, Jason realizes that it's all fake and it's the Death Ranger trying to control him with his mother's memories, so he decides to get the hell out of there. Now, the Death Ranger shows up and tells Jason that he gave him peace, revenge, and freedom, yet they reject him. Jason tells him that they must be better than that because they are Power Rangers, and then hits him so hard that he destroys his armor. At that moment, there is an explosion, and they manage to get out of the Morphin grid and out of Jason's mind. Then, we can see that Jason's body is on the ground and the Death Ranger's presence is gone. Andros says that the Death Ranger's life force has been disconnected from the Morpher and there is no telling where he might be now. Now all the Omega Rangers begin to be released from the Death Ranger's presence and the zombies begin to run out of life. Despite this, the Omegazord continues to attack the Thunderzord and Dragonzord as the Death Ranger's life force joined with the Omegazord. Matthew tells the Rangers that they should merge the Dragonzord with the Thunderzord, and Rocky tells him that he was one step ahead, so they merge both Megazords and transform it into the Dragon Thunderzord. With this new Megazord, the Rangers make a big attack with their sword, and with this they destroy the Death Ranger, who before leaving says that he already saw what is coming and he will be laughing at the Rangers. After a week, the Rangers are in safe haven, but some of them don't want to go back to Earth, but Tommy tells them that Zordon said they must go back before Lord Zed shows up again. Andros thanks Billy for helping him with the cryogenic chamber, and he tells him that if Zane absorbs enough energy from the Morphin grid, then there may be hope. Tommy asks Jason if he has told them yet, and he says not yet, but he will when the time is right. Aisha is worried about leaving Trini and Zach alone, but Kimberly tells her that they will understand since they are also saying goodbye. We can now see Journey in a bed, which looks very old, and the Rangers are saying goodbye to her. Trini tells her that because she went to fight, her metabolism accelerated and so now she is aging faster. Journey is happy that she was able to travel to different worlds, fight aliens, have lots of love and save the universe. People with longer lifespans don't do all those things. After Journey's death, the Omega Rangers meet and Jason tells them that he can no longer morph since in order to destroy the Death Ranger, Andros had to cut Jason's connection to the Omega power. He also tells them that Billy may be able to reconnect him to the grid, but he doesn't know how long that process will take. Trini tells him that he should go rest and spend time with his father since life is very short and he should enjoy it. Meanwhile, someone else will take the leadership. Then, we can see Jason listening to a voice message that his mother had left him before she died. We can also see the Astro Megaship in which Andros goes along with Zane's body in the cryogenic chamber. Now Trini and Zach say goodbye to Jason, then the Rangers morph and we can see that Kever is now the yellow Omega Ranger and Trini has taken the lead and is the new red Omega Ranger. The message from Jason's mom ends by telling him that the Rangers saved the world again, that their job must be overwhelming, and she would like to give them a hug. At the end she tells him that she loves him.